Here we go. So follow-up is one of our first ways that we can extend hospitality to others. And part of what God does in us as we do great hospitality, as we do great follow-up, is He enlarges our hearts. He makes us people who love other people well. And so what we're going to be working on tonight are some of the skills that you use in order to demonstrate to others your love and your care. But really what I'm hoping is that God is doing a much bigger work in you and is growing your love for others. And so let me tell you about 3 students who are growing their hearts for others. So this first is a guy named Cole. Sorry for the picture quality. Screen caps on Zoom calls are not always great, but Cole is fantastic. He is from Utah, and I don't think I told you his story last week, but he went through our Instagram proxy training, and he didn't like it. He didn't like posting on Instagram, and he didn't like our Insta proxies, but he felt God was asking him to try. And so he tried his Insta proxy, and he was encouraged enough by seeing some engagement there to actually start a whole new Instagram just for getting to know people. And so what he's doing is following anyone and everyone he can. And then when they follow him back, he starts the follow-up process, and he messages them and just hi, this is who I am, and he asks them a question. What he asks them is, do you have any prayer requests? And believe it or not, he has followed about 4,000 people this fall, which is just ridiculous. Most people are not Cole, but he's followed 4,000 people. 1,500 of them have followed him back, and he has followed up with each of these 1,500 people, asking them this simple question of, do you have prayer requests? And 550 people, as of a week ago Thursday, had said yes, they do, and have shared with him prayer requests. And he's not only praying for them, but engaging in conversation with several of them. And what God has done is turned Cole from someone who is a nice, warm person into someone who loves others generously with his time and with his prayers. And God is breaking his heart for people that he hardly knows, because Cole can see the goodness that God has for them. And he's learning not only how does he DM people and have these warm relationships, but how does he then bring them into community? And so God is taking Cole on a journey. And I hope that we're actually all on that journey, even if we can't do the 4,000 people version of it. Now over here on the right, this is Christine. And I told you part of her story last week. And the other part of her story is that she has been following up with about 60 freshmen, which is just incredible, getting to know them, and especially getting to know international students who are still in their home countries because they can't fly to the United States. And part of what Christine is doing as she's asking questions and getting to know them is helping them figure out how do they be a part of the Middlebury community even when they're that distant. And she is helping to change her entire chapter so that they have opportunities for international students who are literally operating on the other half of the clock and creating new communities because of the work of follow-up, because God is transforming her heart and saying, well, if there's no opportunity for them there has to be one here, and we have to create it. And then lastly, this is Thomas. Now, Thomas just did this training maybe 3 weeks ago, and he didn't think any of his friends would respond to the Insta proxy. But lo and behold, several of them did, and he started 10 spiritual conversations in 1 week. And he came to me as we were debriefing, and he was a little disappointed. Oh, I only started 10 conversations. But you guys, it's remarkable just to have 10 conversations with your friends. These were conversations he wasn't having before. And God is showing him new ways that his friends need Jesus, and new ways that they actually do connect with the community that he is building. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to be brave like these 3 folks and see what God might want to do as we learn some of these new skills. All right. So here are the skills we're going to be working on. I call this the follow-up triangle, and because there's 3 important parts. So the first is good questions. Good questions help us to actually go deeper in a relationship and not just make this about, do you want to come to my thing, but actually helps us to love people well. And people feel heard as we learn how to be curious about them. The second is, we can't just get to know people, we actually need to invite them to be a part of our community. And most of our friends, what they need right now is a community that's willing to embrace them, right? Most of us are dealing with some degree of isolation, and InterVarsity can be a way that your Christian and non-Christian friends find a home in this really difficult season. And the last part of the triangle I chose as the foundation, and that's persistence, because what it takes to do great follow-up is persistence. And I'll tell you a few more stories about that later. But in essence, sometimes things work really quickly and people will start DMing you back right away. And other times you have to continue with that relationship and approach it a few more times before you even get the conversation started. And God will use them both. All right, so we're gonna actually jump in and brainstorm some questions. Let's see. I'm going to drop this link. And last week I forgot to tell you, but let me tell you right now, if you get onto our website and you go through our training, you should come to the bottom and hit claim badge. And when you've gone through all the trainings, you'll be sent a sticker pack that you can put on your water bottles or whatever, saying that you've actually earned all these badges, you've done all these trainings. So here's what I actually want to show you, that I think there are 3 different kinds of questions that go with follow-up. We're going to brainstorm the first 2. So the first is an opening question. This, to me, is the hardest question. It requires me to be brave because it's starting the conversation and it's letting people know that I want to have a spiritual conversation. And so we're going to take a few minutes and brainstorm what might be some opening questions that you really like and would use with your friends over DM or text. And the second is this going deeper questions. And going deeper questions, they feel safe to me. And the reason they're safe is because people love to actually share about their experiences. And this is where you actually get to be curious about people. You're trying to learn about them. You're trying to understand what is in their background that's made them who they are today. What might God be doing in their life right now? And what happens with everyone when you get to this part of the conversations, you just sort of sit back and relax and begin to enjoy the conversation that you're having. So that's why I think of these as safe questions. So let's go back over to the Google Doc. I'll stop share. And I'm gonna send us, can I send us into rooms to brainstorm? I am going to send us back into rooms to brainstorm in table 2. And so you don't all need a space if you don't want to. You can just have one for your group. But I do want each of you to think about who would be someone you would want to follow up with. So if you did post last week, this could be someone that responded to your InstaProxy. Who do you want to have a conversation with? Or if you haven't, that's all right. Just think about a friend that you would like to invite to InterVarsity, or maybe it's someone that you met this fall when you were doing new student outreach and getting to know some new folks that you'd like to start the conversation with again. So go ahead and in your breakouts, the first thing, think about your person, and then I'm going to change this question to, oh, well then just go to table 3. So let me delete this. Sorry, I'm changing the plan as I go. All right, so table 2, who are you going to follow up with? And then jump to table 3 and brainstorm some of your opening questions and some going deeper questions. And if you want, you can always refer back to our website, which is in the chat, to help you get the juices flowing. So I'm going to give us another 6-7 minutes in our breakouts. I'm going to make them a little smaller now that we're all here. Let's see. And then staff, as we're brainstorming, take a look at what everyone is brainstorming in your room and outside. I'm going to ask you for a couple of your favorites. So be ready to shout out some favorite questions you see. All right, here we go. While you're finishing that, let me share just 3 quick tips for online follow-up and invitations. So one is just engage quickly. So if you have posted an Instaproxy and people are posting, it's really easy to start a conversation because you know they're on Instagram and you have something you guys can both talk about, which is your post. So my suggestion is, if you are able, start with an opening conversation, opening question, like within 5 minutes of someone interacting on your Instaproxy. And if you can't, if you're just picking up a conversation with friends, no big deal, just ask them an opening question. The second is be attentive to the conversation. So this sounds a lot easier than it actually is, because perhaps your friend might answer a couple questions right away, but then they might not get back to it for a few hours. So try and pay attention to where the conversation is at and respond as quickly as you're able so that they feel served by your conversation and your attentiveness. It's part of how we express hospitality online. And then the third is, don't just copy and paste your invitation that you just wrote. So it's really tempting, especially when you have a lot of people responding to your Instaproxy, to just copy and paste your invitation and invite everyone to Bible study. But the reason we don't do that is people know if they're just getting kind of a generic invitation, and they don't want to respond to that nearly as much as they will respond to an honest conversation where you can help them see why they belong in your community. And so my tip would be, ask a couple of questions, 2 or 3 is fine, and then take your invitation. 90% of it will stay the same, but you might customize 1 sentence to actually connect more with the conversation you're having with that person. So that's my suggestion. Keep the invitation you're writing right now, that's going to be your base, and then just customize it a little bit for the person that you're talking to. All right, so those are my 3 quick tips. And let's see. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to our Google Doc, and I'm going to add a quick column to our last table. And what I want you to do is write down 2 to 3 questions that you want to ask someone this week to do follow-up. So what 2 to 3 questions will you ask? And to what will you invite them? So are you going to invite them to your Bible study, or do you have a large group, or what are you inviting people to? What will you invite them to? Now these other 2 columns, it's easier to do ministry when we're doing it together. It's easier to learn what God is doing in us as we engage with outreach when we have someone else who can encourage us. And so let's take a moment, and how do you need to be encouraged this week? And then who do you want to partner with on this call? And let's get some pairs going so you can text each other for prayer. Say, I'm about ready to start this conversation with my friend. Will you pray for me? I'm about ready to post my Instaproxy. Will you pray for me? Or even, I'm not really sure if this sounds the way I want it to. Can I text you what I plan to say and you can give me some feedback? Those sorts of things. So go ahead and fill out this last table. And if you have any questions, I'll stick around a little bit after the hour to answer them.